Hello there, welcome along to the Transfer Show, and we're going to start the show in the best way possible because we've got big breaking transfer news to bring you. Dharmesh Chef.
Finally, Jasper, Manchester United have their man. They have signed the Inter Milan goalkeeper Andre Onana for €55 million. It's €51 million initial payment, €4 million in performance-related add-ons. He signed a 5-year contract at Old Trafford to take him up to 2028. And there is the option for a further year until 2029. Make no mistake about it, this was Manchester United's first choice. This was a deal that was driven and pushed by their manager, Erik ten Hag. He, of course, Onana has played under Erik ten Hag at Ajax. They've been pursuing him ever since the saga with David de Gea. Will he stay? Will he not stay? Once De Gea had left, this was the number one choice, and Manchester United have finally got their man. Andre Onana is finally a Manchester United player.
Yeah, big deal, Dharmesh, and big money, as you mentioned as well. This is what Onana has had to say ahead of joining Manchester United. He says, "To join Manchester United is an incredible honour, and I've worked hard all my life to get to this moment, overcoming many obstacles along the way. Walking out at Old Trafford to defend our goal and contribute to the team will be another amazing experience. This is the start of a new journey for me, with new teammates and new ambitions to fight for. Manchester United has a long history of incredible goalkeepers, and I will now give everything to create my own legacy in the coming years. I'm excited by the opportunity to work again with Erik ten Hag, and I can't wait to play my part in the success. I know he is determined to deliver at this great football club." Those are the words of Andre Onana as he signs for Manchester United. We've got some more quotes as well, Alison.
Yeah, we certainly have. John Murtough, Manchester United's director of football, has said the following: "Andre was our top choice to become the new goalkeeper for Manchester United, with exactly the right profile of technical attributes and personality. Having achieved success throughout his career, we know that Andre will further add to the winning mentality we're building within our squad. He's already one of the world's best goalkeepers at the age of 27, and we firmly believe that he can develop even further over the coming years." That's the football director, John Murtough.
Yeah, Dharmesh, you've been across this deal since the start of the window, and it's gone on for a pretty long time, so you're probably quite relieved at this point. But in terms of the deal itself, what do we know?
Yeah, look, I think Manchester United had an issue with the goalkeepers at the end of the season. We knew that David de Gea was out of contract. Manchester United didn't trigger that one-year option that they had on David de Gea's contract, but they kept dialogue open between the club and David de Gea to find out if they could come to an agreement on a new contract that was going to probably be worth a lot less than what his current contract was on. But we were also told at one point that his future at United was in the balance, and that was on both sides. Manchester United were looking at options. David de Gea was looking at all of his options as well. And once it became clear that they were going to go their separate ways and there was not going to be a new contract, United were doing due diligence on a lot of goalkeepers long before, David de Gea had made this decision, because it was probably decided that that was one of the primary focuses for the summer transfer window. And look, John Murtough said it there. He was the number one choice, Andre Onana, from minute one, I think. Erik ten Hag was driving this deal. He was really pushing for it. He knows exactly what Andre Onana can bring. Onana has played under Erik ten Hag at Ajax before. And once he believed that this deal could be done, I think Manchester United just went full pelt and tried to get it done. And it's taken a little while. I think Inter Milan were after around €60 million. That was going to be their starting price with regard to the negotiations. Manchester United wanted to pay a lot less than that. A couple of bids went in and were rejected. And in the end, they settled on that compromise of around €55 million, which is a €51 million initial payment. All in, it's around £47.2 million. But I think for a 27-year-old goalkeeper, and given it's their number one choice and given the qualities he'll bring, Manchester United will feel this is good business.
Yeah, certainly. Michael, Ten Hag got the man he wants. He's worked with him before as well.
Yeah, that's very key as well, Alison. He's getting the players he wants. We know the players he wanted last season, and a large number of them have done ever so well. And Dharmesh mentions the fee there. Manchester United have had the same goalkeeper since 2011. This is a big step. This is a new era for Manchester United. But we're talking about a goalkeeper that likes to keep possession, good with their feet, building from the back. That's what we hear now about goalkeepers. You think we're talking about central midfielders these days. These are goalkeepers we're talking about, but it's such a key position. So he'll be happy with bringing in the goalkeeper he wants and has known for some time. Of course, he's had him for some time when he was at Ajax. But we've been talking all summer and pre-season, as Darmish has been saying, the targets have been goalkeeper, midfielder, striker. Well, two of those are now in. Let's also remember he's got Marcus Rashford now tied down. So he'll be very happy tonight. And I think what's key as well, looking at all these pictures from pre-season tours, it's so important to get your key players in early if you can. I look at Arsenal last night. Yes, it's pre-season. They look very strong. The likes of Declan Rice is in. So for him to get his number one ready to fly to the United States now for a number of games, that could be massive as the season starts.
You mentioned fly to the United States. The squad flew out yesterday after that victory against Lyon at Murrayfield. Andre Onana is actually on his way to the States. He actually might be at United States already, and there will be a little bit of fallout from this as well, because Dean Henderson's actually out in the States with the Manchester United squad right now. Nottingham Forest remain interested in Dean Henderson. There were talks earlier on in this transfer window. They went a bit quiet because of the whole goalkeeping situation. I think Forest are now just waiting for the green light from Manchester United to be able to resume those talks with Dean Henderson if they can still do a deal for him.
OK, so Manchester United have got their number one goalkeeping target. Let's see exactly how they announced it.
OK, so that deal done, announcement made. What about outgoings, Darmish?
Yeah, there are a couple of players who aren't in the squad in the US. One of them is Alex Telles. He was on loan, of course, last season at Sevilla away from Manchester United, really not figuring in Erik ten Hag's plans. A deal to take him to Al Nassr now, we are told, is very, very close. A fee and a structure is thought to have been agreed in principle. Personal terms, not expected to be a problem. I don't think they ever are when you're dealing with the Saudi Arabian club, because there's big, big money involved with those wages. Eric Bailly is also a player who hasn't travelled to the United States. He's not part of that squad, and we're told now he's not part of Erik ten Hag's long-term plans at Manchester United. There is tentative interest in Bailly from a few clubs in Europe. No offers as yet, but we think that United will command a transfer fee for Eric Bailly still, because he's got a year left on his contract and United still have the option of a further 12 months. So he's effectively got 2 years left on his contract. Now, with Eric Bailly expected to leave and question marks over the now deposed captain in Harry Maguire, the Johnny Evans situation becomes really, really interesting, because we knew yesterday United announced that he signed a short-term deal just to cover pre-season, but a longer deal going into next season and becoming part of that first-team squad has not been ruled out, and for me cannot be ruled out, because it just seems to be a sensible option that Manchester United could take if there are further departures in the central defensive positions. He's a free agent. He won't cost any money. Just one to keep an eye on there, Johnny Evans.
Yeah, very interesting story, that one. It's been a big day of news at Old Trafford, Michael, as well, because as Darmish mentioned there, Harry Maguire's captaincy has been taken over now officially. Yeah, of course, Harry Maguire tweeted that a few days ago as well. But yeah, the big news and confirmation from Manchester United that Bruno Fernandes is the new club captain of Manchester United. It probably hasn't come as a huge surprise, has it? Because he wore the captain's armband for a number of matches under Ten Hag. But this is now a permanent basis, so it's a huge honour for, obviously, Bruno Fernandes. And we talk about previous signings, many that haven't worked since Sir Alex Ferguson's departure. This one has to be one of the best. Bruno Fernandes has been a phenomenal signing for Manchester United. He's now the club captain. What's interesting, though, obviously Harry Maguire, I think, very nice words. It was a good statement. It was a professional statement. It's not nice to lose the captaincy, and 9 times out of 10 that usually means you're heading out the exit door. However, he is
on the tour of the United States. He isn't staying at home in Carrington to negotiate with other clubs because he has got interest from elsewhere. He is on tour. There's been social media pictures of the squad, all smiles. You can't always read into that. But what if he has a great US tour? There's a number of games. He's playing a lot of games. I'll be there at the Man United Wrexham match where I'll be watching Harry Maguire start. So let's see how he gets on. I think he gets on with Ten Hag. There's no indication that he doesn't get on with Erik Ten Hag. But Erik Ten Hag is a ruthless manager. He does things his way and he wants a new captain. And that new captain is Bruno Fernandes.
Fantastic. We've been very, very busy at Manchester United. What about Chelsea, also on pre-season in the US at the moment? What can you tell us about Moises Caicedo, first of all, Donna?
Yeah, talking about busy, Chelsea. Last couple of transfer windows, it's been phenomenal, hasn't it? The ins and the outs, particularly the outs in this transfer window. But we're talking about an arrival now in Moises Caicedo. Chelsea remain in talks with Brighton over the signing of the midfielder. They had a £70 million bid rejected earlier on this week. That's because Brighton rejected it out of hand because they value Caicedo now in the same bracket as West Ham United valued Declan Rice. It's very interesting how certain transfers can skew the market a little bit. Now that Arsenal have spent, a deal worth £105 million on Declan Rice, Brighton are thinking, well, if he's worth that much, we believe Moises Caicedo is worth the same amount of money. So could we yet be seeing another £100 million transfer in the Premier League? One source, though, has told me earlier on today that Caicedo feels he's got some sort of gentleman's agreement with Brighton to be able to leave in this transfer window, provided the price is right for Brighton and Hove Albion. Brighton not commenting on that, but look, it should be said, Brighton are very tough negotiators and they will never stop any of their players leaving, provided their valuation is met. So I think there's quite a big gap in that valuation between what Chelsea are prepared to pay and what Brighton want, but talks are going to continue to see if they can bridge that gap. He is Chelsea's number one target. Of that, there is no question. And we believe that Chelsea are getting that encouragement that Caicedo does want to make the move. He's actually in the US, as you mentioned, with Brighton for the Premier League Summer Series, and the fixture computer, if there is one for a pre-season, has been very, very mischievous because Brighton play Chelsea in Philadelphia on Saturday.
How convenient.
He's 21. He's got 3 years left on his deal. We had a phenomenal season last season. I thought he handled himself well when he was strongly wanted by Arsenal in January, and he was actually fantastic. I was there when Brighton beat Arsenal. But it's funny because Roberto De Zerbi was saying in his press conferences at the end of last season he was a player he won't be considering next season because of the interest he expected and this level he talked about Caicedo expected him to go. But then, as you say, Brighton, they look at Ben White, Trossard, Cucurella, big players for them, but they left with huge, huge price tags. But now I'm looking at Chelsea, and obviously they started their pre-season tour off with a win yesterday, but losing Jorginho, Mason Mount, Kovacic, N'Golo Kante, Ruben Loftus-Cheek. There has to come a time where Chelsea have to sit down and say, look, they got a lot of money out of us for Cucurella, but we need to get this done.
You mentioned outgoings, Dharmesh, and just how busy it's been this summer, but unbelievably, another 2 strikers could be leaving the club soon.
Yeah, well, you say soon. One, yes, one is up in the air. The one that's up in the air is Romelu Lukaku, because his future is no clearer. As it stands, we knew that there were 3 clubs bidding for him: Inter Milan, Juventus, Al Hilal from Saudi Arabia. Inter Milan now no longer pursuing a deal as it stands now. That's because Lukaku kind of opened the door to a move to Juventus, which Inter Milan were not happy about at all. Huge, huge rivals. So Inter Milan said thanks, but no thanks anymore, Romelu Lukaku. Now, Juventus do want to sign Lukaku. So can this deal happen? Well, yes, Juventus are prepared to pay around £40 million for Romelu Lukaku in a deal worth £40 million, initial fee plus add-ons. However, yeah, it is a big loss. But for that deal to happen, Juventus need to make sales. So Dusan Vlahovic is one of their biggest saleable assets. And he's been interesting Paris Saint-Germain. And at one stage, it looked like that deal could happen. But there have been a few pictures on social media with the PSG ultras who are not happy with the interest that PSG are showing on Dusan Vlahovic. And it just seems that PSG, because of that, might be taking a little bit of a step back. So if that deal can't happen, Juventus can't generate the funds to entice Chelsea to part with Romelu Lukaku. So Inter have pulled out. Juventus, even though they want him, can't realistically do the deal just now. That leaves Al Hilal, who probably have a deal on the table that Chelsea would be happy with, but in the past few weeks, Romelu Lukaku has probably intimated Saudi Arabia, maybe one day, but not now, because I've still got unfinished business in European football. But is he going to be in a position where he will have no choice but to go to Saudi Arabia at this stage of his career? It doesn't look like he's got a future at Chelsea just now. He hasn't gone on the US tour. We know that the hierarchy at Chelsea have effectively given him permission to stay behind, train on his own at Cobham, while he tries to sort out his future. But it just looks a little bit murky for him now. And even though there is interest, how much certain interest is there from a club that can actually go out and do this deal? So that one is up in the air at the moment. One that looks very, very close now, though, is Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. He's had about 4 different moves in the last 5 transfer windows, so he's on his way again. The move to Marseille, that one is expected to be announced very, very soon. He's agreed a 3-year contract with Marseille, which is fantastic work by Aubameyang's camp and his representatives. 34 years old, and he's got a 3-year contract with a European club. Once all of that is sorted, paperwork-wise, he'll have a medical in Germany, because that's where Marseille are having a pre-season training camp. So Lukaku, I think Chelsea do want to do a deal. It's up in the air. Aubameyang looks like it's really close.
Dharmesh, take a breath. We're going to take a very quick break. And a reminder of our breaking news. Of course, Andre Onana has joined Manchester United for £47.2 million. Plenty coming up on the transfer show as Manchester City close in on a record transfer for a defender.
Yeah, Newcastle looks set to sign a winger, and West Ham fans, we've got a list of names that could potentially be heading to your club.
to the Transfer Show, and a big hello to all of you watching on the Sky Sports News YouTube channel right now. Well, let's get straight to Newcastle. They're closing in on the signing of Harvey Barnes from Leicester. Our North East reporter Keith Downey has the very latest on this move from the USA.
Leicester winger Harvey Barnes has been undergoing a medical on Tyneside today as he formalises his £38 million transfer from Leicester City to Champions League-bound Newcastle United. A deal was struck with Leicester City yesterday after personal terms were agreed, and Barnes agreed to move to Newcastle United following Leicester's relegation at the end of last season. Newcastle were only able to make the move for Barnes after they were given assurances that Alan St-Maximin was set to travel to Saudi Arabia and sign for Al Ahly. The package totals £38 million for the England international Harvey Barnes. He's been a player that Newcastle manager Eddie Howe has wanted for some time. He's a big fan of his goals. He's a big fan of the amount of assists he's contributed last season despite playing for a team that were relegated. And once that medical is completed over the next 24 hours, winger Barnes will travel out here to the US to join up with his new Newcastle United teammates ahead of the Premier League Summer Series. Newcastle play their first friendly on Saturday against Brighton. It might be too early for Barnes to make a debut by then, but he could be involved against Chelsea next Wednesday in Atlanta.
OK, thanks to Keith for that update. Let's go straight to Michael then, because Harvey Barnes, we know what he's done in the Premier League before, but what do you think he'll bring to this Newcastle squad?
Yes, this is an exciting one for Newcastle and Eddie Howe. Another homegrown player as well, which is becoming more important as it goes on. We obviously signed Anthony Gordon in January, but he's consistent, he's direct, he's got excellent work rate. Now, I know there'll be a lot of fans, and there's people actually outside of Newcastle be wondering, why are you replacing St-Maximin? People love him. We know the fantastic goals he's got, but it's worth maybe comparing the two. I mean, look at that there. Barnes, with just the more games in terms of Premier League record, Barnes has scored 35 goals compared to St-Maximin's 12. Minutes per goal, obviously less for Barnes in that sense. Barnes has more assists. St-Maximin more chances created, but overall, it looks like Newcastle are getting an excellent winger. Of course, James Maddison going to Spurs the other week. He was strongly liked by Newcastle over the year, but it will be Newcastle where Harvey Barnes is heading.
OK, let's move to Manchester City now. Of course, they won the treble. We all know the importance of strengthening after that. And now they're closing in on a potentially world record deal for a defender. What can you tell us about Guardiola? Yeah,
I mean, we understand that they remain in talks. I know there are sources and reports elsewhere that this is getting close. But our colleagues in Germany alongside us are saying that there is no agreement with Manchester City at this stage. And an agreement is not in sight. Look, he's a fantastic player, but the selling team wants €100 million guaranteed. That's according to our colleagues in Germany. More on that as we get it, but there's no agreement yet, with discussions centred on the fee and the structure. But I'm sure Manchester City fans, after seeing a couple of players leaving over the past few weeks in pre-season, want to get maybe one or two in now.
OK, seems like a while to go for that one to get over the line. News of an outgoing at Manchester City today, though, Dharmesh.
Yeah, this one has been confirmed now. It's been mooted throughout the summer, and it's a talented young goalkeeper. James Trafford, of course, was in goal for the England under-21s as they won the European under-21 championships earlier on this summer. They didn't concede a goal. He saved the penalty in the final as well. That deal is now done. Burnley have announced it. We believe it's £15 million up front, plus £4 million in performance-related add-ons. And Manchester City are very good sellers when it comes to their players, because they always add these little clauses in for future to bring some more money in. So they've actually got 20% profit on a sell-on clause. So any money that Burnley might make in the future if they were to sell Trafford, City would make 20% on the profit of that. And they also have a buyback clause and a matching offer clause. If in the future, if he does really well and they think, you know what, we want to bring him back to City, they almost have first dibs on bringing James Trafford back. But James Trafford officially now a Burnley player.
OK, plenty being worked on at West Ham at the moment.
We'll say that
Let's
again.
start off, yes. We like to keep you busy here. What about Mikel Antonio? What's the latest there?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, actually, because it's Saudi Arabia again. Al Ettifaq, the team that Steven Gerrard manages, of course, they are interested in signing Mikel Antonio. We're told, though, it's at a very early stage, the initial talks between the two clubs. He's 33 years old now. He's got a year left on his contract. West Ham have the option to extend for a further year. So he's effectively got 2 years left. So it's understood that West Ham, while they would consider offers, they would still want quite a substantial transfer fee. And I'm sure any clubs now who are looking at selling to Saudi Arabia are probably spotting an opportunity, rather like when clubs in Europe are selling to Premier League clubs. They add a zero sometimes, don't they? And I think that clubs who are selling to Saudi, however old the players are thinking we can still make a bit of money here out of a transfer fee. So Mikel Antonio, very, very early in discussions there. But aside of that, West Ham are still looking to strengthen in that forward area. And this is an interesting one because they're pushing to sign Carlos Borges from Manchester City. He's a Portuguese under-19 international. Talks ongoing over the structure of the deal. He's entered the final year of his City contract, so one to keep an eye on there. Actually, two, Antonio and Borges. OK, interesting stuff. Michael, we all know exactly how much money they have to spend now, courtesy of that Declan Rice deal, and how much of it was up front as well. It puts them in a tricky situation a little bit, doesn't it? Because obviously they've got the deal done, they've got the fee that they desired, but as I said, everyone knows exactly what their budget is.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you take João Palhinha, for example, I mean, there was heard debates about him and how much he will cost. I mean, how much would it take for Fulham to sell him? He's an excellent player, for a phenomenal season at Fulham, so you're absolutely right. But, you know, looking back on West Ham and the way they handled the Declan Rice transfer, I think they can look at it and have their heads held high after that. You know, it was a long transfer. It was the club captain, a guy that won a European trophy in the end. You know, it was done amicably well from West Ham's point of view. I'm sure in the end they'll be happy with the money they'll receive. But it's key now for David Moyes to kick on now. Get a couple of players in, but as you rightly say, it's about getting the right players in as well. And are our clubs going to sort of end up having putting the values up as well on West Ham United? So I'd be interested to see over the next few weeks. But I think David Moyes will be looking to get a couple in now. And of course, they landed this morning back from Perth after beating Spurs 3-2 in a friendly. David Moyes will be glad to be back in London now, and I'm sure he'll be speaking to the board about bringing a few in.
Yeah, speaking about bringing a few in, Dams, obviously they've lost Declan Rice. What about midfielders then? I
mean, every day there seems to be a new name linked with West Ham United with regard to who is going to come in now Declan Rice has gone. The latest one that they're interested in is the Monaco midfielder Youssouf Fofana. He's a French international. He's got a year left on his Monaco contract, 24 years old. Monaco do, though, have the option to extend for a further year. But as I said, he's one of a number that they're looking at. Michael alluded to João Palhinha there. They've had a £45 million bid rejected by Fulham. Fulham, we think, want around £80 million. Can West Ham come to a compromise on Palhinha? So there's one there. There's another one in Dennis Zakaria. Talks are ongoing with Juventus. There's still a gap in valuation, but interestingly, it doesn't seem that Zakaria now is part of Juventus's plans because he's not part of the squad that is going to go on the tour to the United States of America. There's also long-standing interest in the Southampton captain, James Ward-Prowse. I just get the feeling they're going to accelerate their interest in Ward-Prowse. Manchester United, Scott McTominay, and also Chelsea's Conor Gallagher. And they've also held talks with Ajax over their midfielder, Edson Alvarez. Now, it's not just midfielders that they're looking at. They're looking to strengthen in defence. We mentioned Harry Maguire already. There is an interest in Harry Maguire. They're exploring a loan. They're exploring a permanent deal as well. Wages, though, could prove to be an issue. Another name that's emerged today is the Chelsea left-back Ian Maatsen. So impressive for Burnley on loan last season, and we think Burnley are trying to do a permanent deal for him as well. However, he did score in Chelsea's pre-season win against Wrexham yesterday, and after the game, he was interviewed about his future, and he said, I want to have the opportunity to show Mauricio Pochettino what I can do for Chelsea. So I just wonder whether that's going to preclude West Ham United being able to do a deal for Maatsen, but definitely an interest there as well.
So much going on, and we are not done there, but we are going to take a very quick break. Coming up on the Transfer Show, we'll give you all the insight on what type of a player Josko Gvardiol is, and we'll be speaking to the European football expert Kevin Hatchard.
Yeah, we'll also be discussing Harry Kane's future. Will he, won't he? leave Tottenham this summer. Welcome back to the Transfer Show. If you're just joining us, the big news this hour, Andre Onana is now a Manchester United player. He joins from Inter Milan for a fee worth £47.2 million. For more on that deal and plenty more, joining us now, European football expert Kevin Hatchard. Kevin, thank you very much for joining us once again here on the Transfer Show. We're going to start with that big deal that was announced at 7 o'clock with Onana finally joining Manchester United. Just describe what type of goalkeeper they're getting.
I think they're getting a very modern goalkeeper. It's been talked about a lot how progressive he is with the ball at his feet. You could see that in the Champions League final against Manchester City. He has that bravery in possession, which is so important now for a lot of modern coaches, the way they want to build up from the back. And he's somebody who's worked with Erik ten Hag before. That's very important. He's somebody Ten Hag trusts. And so we know that part of his game is sound. But I think the other thing to focus on is just how much the fundamentals have improved. If you look at the run that Inter had to that Champions League final, he was exceptional. They had some very tight games. I remember they went away to Porto. There was a bit of an onslaught there, but he made some really important saves. And we saw that in Serie A too. I mean, this is a guy that came in with Samir Handanovic, who had been the Inter goalkeeper for a long time, was able to lever him out of the way and become the number one. And the fact that he bounced back from that drugs ban that he had to go through, you know, he's managed to do that. He accepted that calmly and managed to come through it. So there's a real force of personality there, as well as a very good technical goalkeeper.
Kevin, we were discussing Josko Gvardiol earlier and the potential move to Manchester City. Can I ask you just how good he is?
Very promising. I mean, this is a guy who's 21. He's already played in major tournaments for Croatia and certainly hasn't looked out of place. Yes, he was done by Lionel Messi at the World Cup, but, you know, there's quite a long list that defenders who've been embarrassed by him. And if you look at his ability on the ball, I think that's what draws Pep Guardiola to him. Really progressive passer, lovely at bringing the ball out from the back, willing to play under pressure. When you're trying to play through a press, that's the kind of guy that you want. So he's got a lovely left foot. He's getting better as a defender all the time. This is a guy who's been on people's radars for a long time. You go back to when he was at Dinamo Zagreb. Lots of clubs wanted him. He made the right move, I think, to Leipzig to grow as a player, to get regular football at a good level. And it's really benefited him. He's versatile. I think he's a perfect fit for Pep Guardiola.
Now, let's talk about this, Kevin. Kyle Walker. It's been interesting, this transfer window. It seems to have gone back and forth. His future at Manchester City appears now to be up in the air. Can you see him realistically at Bayern Munich come the start of next season?
I can, because it's being widely reported in Germany that he's keen on the move. And so Bayern have targeted him for quite some time. Thomas Tuchel sees him as a player that could really help Bayern. He's got that incredible recovery pace. We saw some of the performances he produced for Manchester City in the Champions League last season. And he has that experience as well. And I think what they want is somebody who can play right back, but can also play right centre back and can fill those two positions. And it does seem as though he has given them some indication that he's keen on the move. So now it's about persuading Manchester City to part with a player that they seemingly want to keep.
Yeah, and if Kyle Walker does leave, what do you think then that would mean for Benjamin Pavard and his future?
So often talk of swap deals doesn't go anywhere because it's so complex, there's so many moving parts. But this does dovetail quite nicely because Benjamin Pavard's got to the stage at Bayern where he wants to move on. And he's somebody that I think Manchester City could use. Again, they like players who can play numerous positions. He's always seen himself as a centre-back, but he's ended up playing right-back quite a lot. But I think he's a terrific player. I think technically has improved, and I think defensively very, very good.
What about Leon Goretzka then, Kevin? He's being heavily linked with a move the other way, out of Bayern. Why would the club let him go at this point?
So this is a really interesting one because I think it's been felt for quite some time that Goretzka was nailed on as a Bayern starter. He had a hip injury that caused him a problem a couple of seasons ago. But I think his performances towards the back end of last season, and some would say even a bit longer than that, have not been quite up to his high standards. And so Thomas Tuchel has gone in there. They only just won the Bundesliga last season. It was very, very tight, as we know. Borussia Dortmund blew it on the final day of the season. They were shredded by Manchester City in the Champions League, and Thomas Tuchel's gone in there. He's got more power than most Bayern coaches have had who've gone before him, and he's throwing his weight around. And I think he's saying to players, look, nobody is safe. And so Leon Goretzka is a player that if bids came in that Bayern felt were at the right level, they'd be willing to talk. But the feeling in Germany, at least, is that Goretzka doesn't see it that way. He wants to fight for his place and doesn't want to move on.
Kevin, so much of this transfer window has been dominated by moves to the Saudi Pro League, but we understand from reports tonight that Moussa Diaby has chosen the Premier League over a move to Saudi.
Yeah, and I think this is interesting for a couple of reasons. I think, as you mentioned, if he's chosen Villa over a move to Saudi, the element with Saudi that we don't yet know about is how will it be seen by international managers? So, for example, with France, if he was to go to Saudi instead of coming to the Premier League, would that affect his international chances? We just don't know at this stage. So I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic going forward. I think the other thing that's interesting about it is that Moussa Diaby was linked with Newcastle, with Arsenal. If you look at the last couple of years, he's been linked with top clubs. Not that Villa aren't a top club, but they're not in the Champions League. And I think what we're seeing now is clubs that are, upper mid-table in the Premier League or even below that. You look at Bournemouth, who are being very ambitious and are able to pull off these transfer coups. In terms of the type of player he is, super dynamic, very, very quick, gets goals, gets assists, and somebody who I think, as long as he can cope with the physical dimension of the Premier League, should do quite well.
OK, Kevin, we've nearly got to the end of the chat and we haven't yet mentioned Harry Kane. So you know what's coming now. It's gone a little quiet at this end, hasn't it? Will he end up a Bayern player, do you think, before the Premier League season begins? What's your take?
Anybody who tells you with any sense of surety what's going to happen with Harry Kane, I think is telling a few porcupines, to be honest, because I think this is really tight. Bayern are very interested, as we know. I don't think they would have made multiple bids and be making all of this noise about him if they hadn't been given an indication by him that there is some interest in the move. Now, that doesn't mean he definitely wants to go. I get the sense that he's keeping his options open. Tottenham are waiting for this next bid from Bayern. I think the fact that Uli Hoeneß, who's the honorary president, but has always had a fair degree of power at Bayern, the fact that he was quite outspoken about it didn't probably help Bayern's cause. So I think there's going to be a little bit of firefighting regarding that. But Bayern want him as their number 9. They definitely want a centre forward this summer. So as things stand, it's up in the air. But Bayern still very much believe this is a deal that they can make happen.
OK, up in the air, but still very interesting to us. Thank you very much, as ever, Kevin, for joining us.
Cheers, guys.
Right, Michael, we just heard Kevin talk about Harry Kane then. Let's just quickly discuss it more because, well, one way or the other, if he stays or if he goes, it looks like it's rumbling on. Does it threaten to overshadow preparations? Because it's a big pre-season for Tottenham, this.
Yeah, you don't replace Harry Kane in one window. What I will say is, one, I really enjoyed listening to Ange Postecoglou's press conferences. The first one I did with him and the second one is the few have been out in Australia, and he's been very, very calm about it. And I think he's genuinely calm about it. They've had a conversation. It was a really good conversation. From my understanding, is Harry Kane's really enjoyed the last few weeks under the head coach. I think we've got 3 possibilities here. The ultimate for me is, as Kevin alluded to there, Harry Kane is open to everything. If Bayern Munich came in with an acceptable bid to Tottenham Hotspur, Harry Kane would want to talk to Bayern Munich. If Bayern Munich don't give Tottenham an offer they deem acceptable, I believe that Harry Kane will be fine and he will stay for next season. Now, of course, the worry there for Tottenham Hotspur and Daniel Levy is that he would be on a free at the end of next season if he doesn't sign a new contract. There is a third option. It might actually be a good season for Tottenham Hotspur next season. It's the first time they're not in Europe for 13 years. If things are going well during the season, you can't completely rule that he does sign a new deal, that he's enjoying life under Postecoglou. Tottenham might win a domestic, might win the League Cup. At this stage, you literally cannot rule anything out. But what we do know for certain at the moment, like we've said for the past few weeks, Bayern Munich very interested, but Tottenham do not want to sell.
OK. We will keep you up to date on the very latest with Harry Kane as this window rumbles on. Next up on the Transfer Show, Crystal Palace fans, we haven't left you out. Michael has an update on Wilf Zaha.
Yeah, news of an incoming at Everton and at Bournemouth on the way.
Hi there, welcome back to the Transfer Show. Michael, let's talk about Jordan Henderson again. What's the very latest with him and whether he'll be heading off to the Saudi Pro League?
Yeah, really interesting one, this one, Alice. And we've reported all day of a £12 million deal rising has been agreed between Liverpool and Al Attifaq. Of course, managed by Steven Gerrard. Look, this is mega money and he needs to make a decision, and it seems like he might need to make that decision pretty soon because, of course, Liverpool need to move on and talk about potential replacements. So, of course, Liverpool have a training camp in Germany, which he was part of. Fabinho wasn't part of that. Of course, he's going to Saudi Arabia. But Al Attifaq aren't owned by the PIF, the Saudi Public Investment Fund, so they're nowhere near as successful as the other clubs so far in Saudi Arabia. This is a tough challenge for Steven Gerrard, but you do wonder, was Gerrard given assurances before signing his contract as manager, potentially bringing in a Jordan Henderson or Jordan Henderson himself? Of course, he'll be thinking, of course, it's a very, very lucrative offer. Jordan Henderson will be offered, but also will he be thinking about his England future tonight as well? We heard from Kevin there talking about players potentially moving to Saudi Arabia and their international futures. It's such a good debate. And, of course, Jordan Henderson, who keeps himself so fit, a big part of Liverpool and England, will he be considering his international future tonight?
OK, let's get to the future, Michael, of Wilfried Zaha. Possibly a glimmer of hope for Crystal Palace tonight.
This is one of the most enjoyable parts of the transfer window, the pictures. What can you read from pictures? Where is it? Where's the picture? Where's the Twitter? We've got it.
Where's the Twitter?
We've got
There
it.
we go.
There it is.
There we go.
Now, that is not Saudi Arabia. That is Beckenham. Alison, Darmish, we've been there plenty of times at press conferences, but a little cheeky picture, Wilfried Zaha there. Of course, we know there's an offer on the table from Crystal Palace. We know he's had interest from Turkey, from Saudi Arabia as well. Now, what we reported last year, obviously, Wilfried Zaha, what we do know is he absolutely loves Crystal Palace. But, of course, you know, people talk about Wilfried Zaha as well. Does he deserve to play for a club who are in Europe? This looks like, of course, it's been very open for the last few weeks. He got married, he's had a few holidays, he had a honeymoon. But does that picture give you the impression that maybe a decision is near? Or is Palace just being kind and letting him, use the facilities? You know your way around, Wilf. Go and get yourself fit. But I know a lot of Crystal Palace fans will be excited. What I will say very quickly about Crystal Palace is maybe a few years ago, they were overly relying on Wilfried Zaha and what they will do going forward. With the likes of Michael Elise now and Ebieze, real fantastic players coming through. If Zaha decides to look elsewhere, I don't think Palace fans will be totally devastated. But, of course, if he does come back, they will be delighted.
Yeah. Well, they do say a picture paints 1,000 words, but it's unclear what words that picture paints, so we will keep you up to date on it. What about news of a done deal at Bournemouth today, Darmish? Yeah,
this is one we were expecting. They have signed the left-back Milos Kerkez from AZ Alkmaar. We think the fee is around £14 million initial payment plus £1.5 million in performance-related add-ons. He's only 19 years old, highly rated, already a Hungary international, and Bournemouth announced that signing earlier on this morning, so he is now a Bournemouth player.
OK, Michael, a couple of updates from Everton then. Start with Arno Danjuma.
Yes, I need to be a bit careful this one because I did this in January. Arnaut Danjuma agreeing to join Everton, but I think this one is going to happen. Now, this is a loan deal from Villarreal. Now, the loan fee we understand to be around £3.5 million. As I say, he was very close to joining Everton last January. He ended up joining Tottenham, but I understand he's excited to be joining Everton this time, and a medical, if all goes well with negotiations, the medical will take place, we know, on Saturday.
What about Premier League newcomers Luton? What can you tell us about... have they made any signings, Darmish?
Yeah, they've just completed the signing of the midfielder Marvellous Nakamba from Aston Villa. It's on a 3-year contract. He knows Luton very well. He was on loan there from Villa for the second half of last season, was a key player in Luton's promotion push that eventually got him into the Premier League, so he'll be a Premier League player with Luton this season.
OK, let's just skip back to Everton quickly, Michael. Anywhere else that they want to strengthen, do you think?
Well, obviously, Arnaut Danjuma is a forward. Ansia Langer, we're told from my colleague Anna Myers as well. And Wilfred Gnonto is another player they're keeping an eye on. But, yeah, attacking reinforcements is Everton's plan at the moment.
OK. Just a couple of minutes. So let's recap our big breaking news today. Of course, Andre Onana has been announced and he is now a Manchester United player, Don.
Yeah, in the last hour at 7 o'clock, Manchester United finally announced that Andre Onana has joined from Inter Milan, a deal worth around £47.2 million. So it's around £43 million, £44 million initial payment plus £3.5 million in performance-related add-ons. This is a deal that Erik ten Hag has been driving ever since it became very, very evident that David De Gea was not going to be staying at Manchester United. He wanted to bring in Andre Onana. Onana's played under Ten Hag at Ajax. He's a player that he trusts, that he knows very, very well. And Onana now is on his way to the United States to be part of the squad on their pre-season tour. He left a bit earlier on. He should be arriving pretty soon in New York, yeah.
So United fans should be delighted with this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when it's the head coach who gets the players he wants, that's very key as well. I mean, there was question marks, wasn't there, last season about Lisandro Martinez. Well, I mean, what a season he had in the end. Casemiro, what an excellent signing he's been. But it's an end of an era for Manchester United as well. They had a goalkeeper since 2011. And, of course, Manchester United fans, you've got a new permanent captain today too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll bring you the latest on that next, plus reflect on a brilliant day of cricket and golf at the Open as well. They're still playing out there. Updates to come next.